So here we are with another crafty flick with me, Sheena Douglas. And what we're going to be concentrating on is one of my favourite techniques, caught in crystal, but it's caught in crystal with a difference. It's kind of like advanced, if you will, because I've teamed up for this card the caught in crystal background with using the Luminart Primary Elements paints. But for the acetate, to colour the acetate, I've actually brought in the Pebeo Acrylic so that you've got a solid foreground and the gorgeous, amazing effect in the background. So it's not, the images on the foreground aren't just transparent, which I really love. They really pop out. So that's what we're going to make. This was inspired by this card I created on TV show. But having had feedback from you, you all were loving this one. So this is what we're going to work through now. So what I've done previously is I've taken a piece of heat resistant acetate. It's really important this is heat resistant, and I've stamped and embossed the leaves from the Quest stamp A5 stamp sheet, along with the little toadstools and the little bundles of leaves and foliage from the Enchanted Doorway stamp set. And I'm just going to take an anti-static bag. It's really important when you stamp and emboss on acetate, you use a lot of this powder, just go over the top. It'll dust off later, but you need that on for now. I'm going to take the vines, which are also on the Enchanted Doorway stamp set, and I'm just going to add those to the bottom just to give it a bit more interest. Now, I'm stamping on a really horrible desk for stamping. I'm not kind of, you know, set myself up here just in case it doesn't work perfectly. It really is awful, and normally I have a piece of MDF or a glass mat to stamp on, but I haven't, so we'll just see what it happens, how it goes, because the reason I do that, if you're wondering, is this looks like a solid desk, but it's a plastic surface. It's got like reinforced underneath, but you don't get a great stamped image on it. So I would strongly suggest those of you who have something like this, this kind of desk you're working on, just do what I do. Use something solid underneath, like an offcut of MDF or something when you're stamping. So pop the black embossing powder on there, and I want that nice and kind of swirly, viney. So when you're heating this, just be careful that you don't go too close to the acetate, because even though it's heat resistant, it's not indestructible and it will warp. So hold back, and as soon as your embossing powder is melted, that's it, leave it. Don't overheat it, or it will, like I say, wrinkle a little bit and it'll not look very pretty. So that's just about done. Fantastic. Now we're going to paint the reverse side using some gorgeous Pebeo paints. So I've started to paint this, and I'm going to show you how. I just went a little bit, just because you'll get enough, you'll see enough with the bit what I'm going to do now. So what I've got is just a series of different colours here. The acrylic colours are the Pebeo acrylics, and they're fantastic, really opaque, gorgeous colours, and perfect for this technique because they're one of the few paints that will actually naturally want to cling to acetate. So all I've done is I've just taken random splodges. You don't want to make it too perfect and even. Just splodge, that's a new word, splodge, you know it'll be all the trend. Just splodge on colours between the three. I'm trying to keep the leaves towards the bottom a little bit lighter, just because a little bit of highlight. But be aware that if you put white on and then try and put a colour later, you'll still just see the white, because you're going to look at this through the underneath of the image. This is the back of the embossed image that we're working on. So if you think, oh, I'll add a little bit of a highlight later, you can't, because that highlight will just be showing on the back of the acetate, and you're not going to be looking at that. So just something to think of there. Oh, a little bit of yellow in there. And really, you know, you don't want to be too careful with this, because you won't know what you've got until you turn it over. And you really will see how you can be a little bit random. But I'll show you what that foliage looks like. See how cool that looks looking. And you saw how quickly I splodged it on. Looking good. Okay, now what I've done is I've actually painted the dots on the toadstools with the white. Just little dots of white acrylic. I've dried it, and then I've put another dot of white acrylic. And this is why I want to go right over with the pink. because then what will happen is, because acrylic paint dries to a plasticky finish, this isn't going to upset that dried paint that's already on there, but make sure it has to be dry. So we'll do a little bit pink at the top, a little bit purple to the bottom. Again, you don't have to make this too difficult. You see how I'm just splodging it on there, look fab. What I've also done is I've painted, oh, I forgot the little one there, splodge that there. Now what I've also done is I have started to paint the little trunks or whatever of the toadstools, the stems or whatever you will, and but what I do need to do is just go over and paint them with a bit of white on top to make them look a bit more solid, but I don't want them to look completely just white. So what I've done is I've mixed a little bit of the brownie colour in with that white paint. Now the white paint is always going to be opaque. Some of the acrylic colours are slightly semi-opaque, slightly transparent, which is why you want to turn your acetate over when you can and see what's happening. And if you can see the light through, all you do is just paint some white on the back of it, and that's what I'm going to need to do with the pink once I've given that a quick dry, and then I'll show you. So this is what we've got so far. Ta-da! But you see the way the pink's not as solid as it could be. What I want to do is just blank that out with some white acrylic, so I'm going to do that now. So as you can see, what I said I've done is I've blanked out the back. Once they dry that layer of pink and purple, and then you can just go ahead and just paint the white over. And what that does, it makes it opaque and stops the light shining through, so that even though the back looks a bit rubbish, when you turn it over, ooh, it's so pretty, because all of your detail is there and embossed and shiny and gorgeous. So now the next stage, you're going to pop that down there on a piece of card or copy paper. You need to do that because the next bit's going to get a little bit messy with the help of this here. This is the stuff you're looking for. Loads of you asking, what am I looking for? Obviously I can't tell you on the telly because they don't like it, and I'm no way I'm going to be able to mind all this for you. I mean, I'm getting good, but not that good. So this is what you're looking for. It used to be just called clear, but now it's the Pledge multi-surface wax. Okay, right now, oopsies. Right, so we've got that ready. Next thing you're going to do, I've got my Tahiti Dreams primary elements here, all ready with the lids off, ready to play. I've got a tissue, really expensive. If you go for the multiply ones, you just tear one of the plies away, one of the layers, scrunch it up. I mean, you can use like crafting tissue and stuff, but really I always just use this. It's as good, it's nice and fine, and it gives a great effect. You want to scrunch it up and then leave it flat-ish a bit. I've poured some of that Pledge floor wax, they call it wax, it's not really, it's like an acrylic, it smells lovely now, into one of these little cups. This is actually from one of my other sets of my pourable set. Or just pour it in the lid. I'm going to now take some of that Pledge and I'm going to splodge it all over using the largest brush of the Paint Fusion brush set. How many times do I mention that brush set? Just because I did say from the very start that it was the brush set I'll be using all the time, not just for Paint Fusion. It's the one I come back to all the time because it's the one that you're going to need all the time. There's always a size brush there that's going to sort you out, and at this time it's the largest one. So you want a really good thick puddly layer on there. Don't be, a little tip, start with a bigger bit of acetate because then you've got more trimming in room. I've got mine really close to the edge, and I really wouldn't recommend that because I am going to have to trim this down. I've left enough at the bottom, but some of these leaves will get trimmed off later because you won't be able to get it perfect right to the edge of your acetate, if you know what I mean. Now make sure you haven't got any extra stuff that's going to drop off your brush, and just tip the brush with a little touch. Look at that, tiny little bit goes a really long way. Alright, okay, again, just a tiny little tip of colour. You don't want it dripping off. If you don't think you can do that without it dripping, I would take some of the colour out and pop it on your non-stick craft sheet, because you really don't want to have a liquid spoil your paints. So that may be the safest way if you're not sure, you know, how well you're going to be able to control that. See how that's going? It's so pretty. even though it's going to run under the front, but we're going to watch for that. We don't want that to happen, which is why if you get a bigger bit of acetate, it's likely to happen. So, and also you're going to find whether your desk is flat or not, and you can see mine is anything but flat. But that's all the fun of it. This is why it's one of those techniques that you can't stress over it too much, because you get what you're going to get. A little bit of glitter, put the glitter in the bits where there's a lot of fluid. It kind of soaks a bit of it up, so don't put it as much on the dry bits. Try glitter colours that you think, whoa, don't know how that's going to look. Just put them in there, like a green and a pink. Whoa, it's crazy, but it might just work. And then you're going to pop that on there. You're going to take your big brush again, dry it so you don't have any water in it, because you just want that liquid to now bond to the acetate. Just splodge it down. You say I used to do this with my fingers, but now I've got this really large brush, I won't have to, so you don't end up with it all over your hands. And if it looks a bit dry in places, dead easy. You just put a bit more of the fluid on there. See? Just plaster it down. So where it was maybe a little bit thin, you're okay. But in order to get all the colours to blend together and smoosh together, you do want it really wet in the first place. This is just like a little fix that you can do at the end. But make sure you do have lots of fluid on there. So, looks a mess. You have to leave that to dry at least 2-3 hours. If you can, overnight's better. Make sure you've got no drips like that. If you do, get a new piece of card and try and carefully dry underneath, because you don't want that sticking to your card. I'm going to try and turn it over. Wow, isn't it pretty? But you won't be able to do anything with it until it's dry. Okay, so you pop that to one side, it's going to dry. Now I've got one here that doesn't have anything on, but this is the kind of consistency you're going to get. That's all sort of heated dreams. Now I could stamp and emboss that now if I want, even though it's got a texture on the back. See, it's all crispy, it all bonds and fuses together. Listen, a little tune on it. So don't try and trim it in your trimmer until you make sure it's 100% dry. And then once you've trimmed it, go back to the finished card. You can either put it against a white card background, but I find I really get a great effect if I use mirror card. I don't usually use mirror card in the rest of my crafting, but it kind of bounces the light out a little bit more. But make sure also you attach it with brads, okay? You don't want glue showing through there. And I just think that's a fab technique, because it's like, you know, I did this 10 years ago, this Golden Crystal with the polish, but it didn't look anything like this because I didn't used to emboss on the acetate for a start. Then, just recently, I've been colouring it with the Pebeo paints, and it looks better again. So there you go, and there's another sample. Now, obviously with everything, as usual, it's Sheena.tv for all of anything you need, product-wise. There'll be links there, you go and buy there, but there'll be a link for where you can. Galleries in abundance, and links to all the other video tutorials. So hope you've enjoyed that, and we'll see you again soon.